Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krensman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look at that smooth intro today. The music working. That always works. Thank you for joining the Mind Your Puckin' Business show, episode number 18, the Ese Ocho on the Spanish dial. Coming to you live, as always, from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. And we did get the snow that we talked about was coming last week, but it sounds like we may get a Christmas rain that may wash it all away, which would be fine with me. Although my kids have enjoyed playing in it. Yes. Welcome to the show. You can reach us anytime. Send us your questions at mypbshow@gmail.com. That's mypbshow@gmail.com. And I expect in the coming weeks and coming months as well that we will be getting a lot more questions because hockey is coming back, and we will get to that on the second half of the show today. How are you doing?
We'll probably get into it, but I lost my fantasy league.
How much did you lose by, Dougie Stick?
0.3. Not a point. 0.3.
Fantasy is, I think, designed by the gods that when you lose, you have to lose in heartbreaking fashion. Yeah. Like they don't do it a different way. And so, my condolences. You can spend your Sunday this week, although we actually have football Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday this week. You can actually spend it just enjoying it like I did this past weekend because I was eliminated the week before.
And I snuck in the back door, fourth seed, and I was playing the number one player who's undefeated. Yeah. Painful.
Frustrating.
Yeah, and all my players, they easily could have had way more points. Yeah, way more points.
Well, the glass is always half empty in fantasy. Speaking of frustration, do you think today and this week, if you are a fan of the New York Jets, are you frustrated?
Wow. Now, are you going to get into that? Because there's a lot of mad fans right now.
For those of you who may be new to the program, we have talked here for a while, and there will be some people, and there have been some people that have gotten on us for having this opinion, that the New York Jets are better off going 0-16 because they were in the driver's seat to get the number one pick, which is going to be a quarterback from Clemson named Trevor Lawrence. And the Jets need a quarterback. It was a perfect fit. The New York Jets this weekend traveled all the way across the country to play the red-hot Los Angeles Rams as a 17-point underdog. I'm going to repeat that. A 17-point underdog.
Yeah. And
somehow managed to win the game. Even though when I turned it on in the fourth quarter because I saw what was going on, the Jets looked like the worst team. I mean, they didn't do anything in the fourth quarter, but they still somehow managed to win. If you're a New York Jets fan now, you now own the second pick in the draft, and that being not Trevor Lawrence. The Jets now, with one win, are tied with Jacksonville, but Jacksonville owns the tiebreaker. So as long as Jacksonville loses their next two games, which they probably will, they're home this weekend to the Bears, and they're a 7.5-point underdog. And then next weekend, they'll be even a heavier underdog in the last game because they travel to Indianapolis. Jacksonville is going to get the number one pick. Now, go ahead. It looks like you want to say something before
So also I heard that because of strength of schedule, too, they also have that. Jacksonville has that in their favor as well.
Correct. Right.
So even if they didn't have a tiebreaker, their strength of schedule is weaker.
Which is true.
Yes.
So now if you're a Jets fan, and this is really the one thing that came out from this story on Sunday, because this really is the upset of the year so far in the NFL season. Although last night, the Cincinnati Bengals, a 14.5-point underdog, beat the Steelers. But the Jets winning at the Rams is absurd. It doesn't even make any sense. But, the Jets come out after the game, and the coach Adam Gase and Frank Gore, the running back, say what they need to say, which is, look, we play to win the games, the famous Herm Edwards quote of the Jets back in the day. And that's fair, right? Because Adam Gase needs to win games because that's what he's paid to do. However, the reality here is Adam Gase, Frank Gore, Sam Darnold maybe even as well, they ain't going to be here next year. So when the Jet fans get annoyed now that you screw them out of possibly a generational player in Trevor Lawrence, they have a right to be annoyed. Yeah. They really do. Now, the Jets have fallen back, as we talked about, to the second spot in the draft, and now they probably are going to draft a QB that not named Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields out of Ohio State, who's good. I mean, look, how many times, I think of the Ryan Leaf example in football. I think of plenty of in hockey, Neil Yakupov, a guy that Edmonton drafted first overall years ago, that a first overall pick just doesn't work out. It happens, right? Mm-hmm. It happens. But if you're the Jet fan, man, you have a right to be annoyed, because Adam Gase and all these guys who are winning this game, that is the part of it that I just don't, it doesn't make sense. The Jet fans have to live with this for the next 20 years. Adam Gase is out of here. What does it matter to him? It matters to Jet fans.
And where was this fire the whole season?
Right.
They didn't play like this the entire season. Now all of a sudden we want to, I don't know.
It's insane. And just a weird upset. And now the Jets can lose the next two games, which they probably will, at home versus Cleveland this week and up in New England next week. But it's not going to matter, as Jacksonville owns the tiebreaker, and Jacksonville will, in the number one draft spot, select Trevor Lawrence, because it's the obvious thing to do, first of all. But two, they also need a quarterback. It's not like they have a young quarterback and they've got to decide. So what a mess for the Jets. I mean, this one meaningless win in week 15 is going to set this franchise back now 15 or 20 years. It's just incredibly stupid, and it's just typical New York Jets. I mean, you can't make it up. You really can't. You can't even tank correctly. I mean, you really can't. I mean, that is the Jets in a nutshell. But so if you're the New York Jets and you're a fan of the New York Jets, man, do you have a right to be annoyed here today? So moving on to football, last week, or sticking with football, but sticking with our football theme rather, last week we did our picks, and I said going into, this was week 15, we were 7 up with 7 winning weeks and 7 losing weeks. We have 3 weeks left. We have to have at least 2 winning weeks to have a winning record. It was close. We got it, but it was close. We were wrong, and we were dead wrong on the Denver Broncos getting 5 at home versus the Buffalo Bills. So we watched this game on Saturday, because it was the only game on. And when you're in kind of this quarantine mode that we're in and football's on, I don't care. I don't think it really matters what team is on. You're going to watch it. So my wife and I watched it, and it was not even a close game. Denver lost by 25. So I'm glad we had the 5 points. We were wrong on that. And we were wrong on the Sunday night game with the Giants getting 6 at home versus Cleveland. The Giants now, who were in the driver's seat to win this terrible NFC East, is now not going to win the NFC East. And we were wrong on that. But the 3 that we had right that made it a winning week, I said I was going to really be annoyed at myself if I got this wrong, because I had this wrong a couple weeks ago, but we got it right. Atlanta getting 6 at home versus Tampa. They lost by 4, I believe, so we hit that. And the Cowboys getting 1.5 at home versus the 49ers. I was all over that game, and the Cowboys ended up winning. And the other one that we had, which was close, half a point, Dougie Sticks. We're sticking with the fantasy half a point theme. We had the Redskins getting 5.5 at home versus Seattle. So that leads us to a winning week, and that puts us 8 weeks up and 7 weeks down with 2 to go. So we got to get one more winning week, and we've done our job.
We made your money.
But then, excuse me. And by the way, before we went live, I was dying over here. I drank my iced tea wrong.
Get tested after this.
Yeah, I because I drank my iced tea wrong. I was dying over here. Because of that, even though we had winning regular season, we are going to have to really step up our game in the playoffs, because that is where we're going to. What I think we're going to do, and we haven't decided on
double the bets.
Well, I think we're going to have to pick. Well, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to have to pick every playoff game, because if there's 4 or 5 a week, we're going to pick every playoff game, and we will see how we do and try and continue the winning trend in the playoffs.
Is that going to be part of our regular season's a record? No, I think it'll be a separate.
I think it'll be separate.
All right, I agree with that.
And then,
especially if we're winning in the regular season, we just walk stop away. It. Right.
I tell you, you're a sales guy. Look at that. He's got it. So let's move on to our week 16 picks. Man, 2 more weeks of football. That's all we got before playoffs. All right, so week 16, I am going to stick with a similar theme. So last week, I preach on the show all the time about taking home teams when they get points. We did this across the board last week. Every pick was that, and we ended up having a winning week. We are almost doing this, except for 1 game here, or actually, except for 2. But we're sticking with that theme. So the first pick is a Saturday night primetime special. The Las Vegas Raiders getting 2.5 versus the Miami Dolphins. My thought process here and we've seen this. We saw this with New Orleans, for example, during the early parts of the season on Sunday Night Football, that sometimes when teams go out west, they play in a primetime game. Sometimes they don't really bring their A game. I'm not sure why that is. Miami is also young and inexperienced, although they've been very impressive. I like the Raiders getting 2.5 at home to keep their slim playoff hopes alive. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we just talked about them with the Trevor Lawrence situation, are getting 7.5 points at home versus the Bears. Jacksonville better lose this game. Trevor Lawrence is waiting if you lose, but 7.5 points is a lot, and I don't really trust the Bears to be a 7.5 point favorite on the road. I think the Bears will win, but 7.5 is a lot. You even have a touchdown there to cover. So give me the Jacksonville Jaguars 7.5 at home versus the Bears. The Cowboys plus 1.5 at home versus the Eagles. The Eagles, who I do not like, any New Yorker really does not like the Eagles, have really played well in the last 2 weeks with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback. They played really well out in Arizona, even though they lost. So, but the Cowboys at home, I don't know. I like it. Give me the Cowboys plus 1.5 at home. The other one, and this is actually weird. We have a Friday game this week, and that is this game. The Vikings plus 6.5 at the Saints. The Saints just got Drew Brees back. Michael Thomas is still out on IR. Alvin Kamara is super hit or miss. I mean, that guy's either on or he's off, and he's been off the last couple of weeks. 6.5 is a lot. I will. So give me the Vikings plus 6.5 at the Saints. And last but not least, I'm going to take, and I kind of want to go back on this one after last night, but I'm going to stick with it anyway because I did this before the Monday night game, and that is the Steelers giving 2.5 to the Colts. So I'm going to take the Steelers giving 2.5 at home versus Indy. But if you saw the way that the Steelers looked last night in Cincinnati, you may want to run away from that bet. So to recap, the week 16 picks, the Raiders plus 2.5 at home versus Miami. The Steelers minus 2.5 at home versus the Colts. The Jacksonville Jaguars getting 7.5 at home versus the Chicago Bears. The Dallas Cowboys getting 1.5 at home versus the Eagles. And the Vikings getting 6.5 at the Saints. Those are our Week 16 picks. Now, we always pick the local games. I don't know. We already have. Look at this. Look at this on our screen in the studio that nobody can see. We have the spreads up. So
I could go like this, but no one would see it.
No one would see it. And you know what? The screen that we have here in the studio is like one of the nicest pieces of equipment in here.
Oh, thank you.
Nobody.
I don't know if that's a compliment or a diss.
but nobody can see it.
But no one can see it.
Nobody can see it. All right. Well, I can see it. So the Giants are getting 10 on the road versus Baltimore. What scares me here with this game is Lamar Jackson in the last 2 weeks has kind of come back to life. Like if you had him last year in fantasy like I did, the dude was absurd. And then this year, for the first 14 weeks or the first 13 weeks, he really was not good. And then the last 2 weeks, he's turned it on. So the Giants have no offense, so they can't score. And so you figure maybe the Giants are going to get maybe 13 points. Can Baltimore score 23 with Lamar? Yeah, they can. I'm going to actually take Baltimore minus 10. I think the Giants have checked out. I really do. It's a lot of points.
Had a glimmer, and then it just faded.
Yeah, it did. I'm going to take Baltimore here minus 10. The Jets, you want to scroll up here on the screen. It's going to be up. The Jets are home versus Cleveland, and they are getting 10.5. Boy, what does it tell you about the New York football teams? Both teams in Week 16 are getting, one is getting 10.5 and one's getting 10. Holy
I'm surprised.
cow.
I'm surprised. Well, I mean, no, I'm not surprised. Never mind. I mean, the win last week is not going to change your spreads.
No. The Jets getting 10.5. You know what? This is not an easy game to pick because
your new fiery Jets team.
The new
out there
fiery
now.
Jets, right? You know what? I'm gonna take the Jets. 10.5 is a lot at home, and there's something with Cleveland that they can score, but it's still Cleveland, and I know that's disrespectful to say, but they are very good. But they're getting 10.5. I'm gonna take the Jets. So I'm gonna take on the local field, which don't count for our picks. I'm going to take the Jets plus 10.5 and Baltimore minus 10. What do you think?
It's a good idea not having them count.
Yes, it is. Because, well, except for this weekend where the Jets really pulled off the shocker of all shockers, I read a stat somewhere that the Jets, like against the spread, have a horrible record this year, like because they've been getting blown out. Yeah. So if we had done the Jets counting, it may have helped because we just normally pick against them. We're not this week, but we normally would pick against them. So those are our Week 16 picks with only 1 week left. So if we can get a winning week here this week, we will get it done, and we will finally have the winning year we started out.
We
on
were starting
tap
off
again.
super strong. Yeah.
We started out strong, and
Make
then we
sure
came
they
back.
know that we started off super strong.
You know, if you listen to us like weeks 1 to 5, you made a killing.
Yeah.
And then there was like a couple weeks in there, I want to say like 11 to 13, where it was like, dude, stay away from everything that we said. But in any event, so those are our football picks. Now, Dougie Sticks, I have a question for you.
I have an answer.
I usually do. So Sunday, now the NHL, which is, and we talk about the NHL a lot on the show, which of course we have to do, being called Mind Your Puckin' Business.
True.
The NHL had been rumored for the last 2 weeks. I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago, that they were going to be coming back in this modified schedule. And it kept like being rumored, and people would say it was official, but there never was word from the league, and the two sides didn't officially agree. Well, on Sunday during football at about 3:00, so right as the 1:00 games were ending, word came out that the NHL and the NHL Players Association reached an agreement. We were officially all set for a 56-game season, which is going to start on January 13th. Training camps open for the teams that did not make this playoffs in the past summer. They'll open next week. And then for the following teams, really in a week and a half from now. So it's really going to happen real quick. And what the NHL is doing is they're coming back with a 56-game season, setting the table. Now, here's the key, and this is not being talked about. Mm-hmm. But I picked up on this, and you can see that this is going to happen. This is their plan. Mm-hmm. The NHL's plan right now is to do this 56-game season, which is great, right? We all need hockey. They're doing home arenas. We'll get into it, and we have a couple guests we're going to bring on the show in a minute. But the key here is that the NHL is under the impression, and let's hope that they are right, that by October of 2021, we're going to have a regular 2021-2022 season. Because what they're doing is they're condensing everything, and the off-season timetable when this season is going to end at the end of July is like 2 weeks until there's the NHL entry draft next summer, as well as free agency. So the NHL is under the impression we're going to get this modified season in, and this looks very much, if you've been a fan of the NHL, from 1995, the year the Devils won their first cup, where the season started, I believe the Ranger home opener that year, don't quote me on this, was January 20th, because that was the game they raised the banner from winning the cup the year before. They had a home opener versus Buffalo on a Friday night, and that's what the season looks like. So there's going to be some hockey talk coming on the program in the next couple of weeks, which is going to be exciting. And we're going to do some hockey talk today.
Absolutely.
With two really knowledgeable fans, and let's see if they're there. That would be Jeff and Don, and they run a podcast called What the Puck Podcast. Mm-hmm. They like to use the play on the word puck like we do with Mind Your Puckin' Business. So let's see if we can get technology to work. I always throw that caveat in. Let's see if we can get them both on the show. Looks like we got them. How are you guys?
What's going on, guys? No, it's bad. Yourself?
We are good. And I like the background there of the is that a Ranger jersey in the background?
Yes, it is. Just in honor of Lundqvist.
There you go. Yes. And you know what? We should bring that up on the show, because we did this whole thing the day that the Rangers bought him out. I don't know if you know this, Dougie Sticks.
Yes.
But he was diagnosed randomly in the last couple of weeks with a heart condition, and he will not be playing this year because the doctors that he's consulted with across the country have deemed it too risky. So he will not be joining the Capitals and instead taking the year off. So we do wish Henrik Lundqvist, who is probably the greatest guy in the game and the nicest guy, all the best of luck. So how happy, let me start with you, Don. How happy were you on Sunday to see that hockey is officially coming back?
It felt good, and I'm happy that you have a Panarin jersey on. I'm a diehard Ranger fan. It's nice to see. I jumped in when you guys were talking about the Jets. Sad face. I am a Jet fan too. So, but no, I mean honestly, I've been waiting for it. It was great, the playoffs. Although my playoffs were cut short, 3 games. Thanks, Jeff, and this Carolina Hurricane. But no, I mean I'm super pumped. Honestly, it's going to be great. It's going to be tough. The way they have these divisions planned out, man, playing division rivals 8 times, that's gonna be something interesting to see, especially in that East with the Rangers, Islanders, Pittsburgh, Boston. They're just gonna beat the crap out of each other, to be honest with you. And
that is actually one of the questions I have for you guys coming up is this division alignment, because the Ranger division is brutal. I mean, it is brutal. So, Jeff, you are a Carolina Hurricane fan, or you just live down there?
Well, it's kind of funny because I lived all over the world being prior military. And when I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up a Rangers fan. One year, my uncle bought me a New York Rangers jacket just out of the blue, and kind of like one thing ran into another. And family history is all hockey, all the way up to the semi-pros in the Canadian League as well as the European League. So I technically should have been a Canadians fan, but luckily I wised up and said no. But I am as soon as I got out of the military, I moved to North Carolina, and I mean, hockey's hockey. When Vegas came along, I'm good friends with the head Golden Knight that wears the golden armor and everything. So I'm a Vegas fan as well too. So it's kind of like I have an allegiance, but I also have my fandom too. So.
There you go. Well, we appreciate that. Nothing against Montreal. They have enough fans out there in the world. We could always use as much fans as we get. So let me ask you guys a couple questions. So part of the NHL return to play conditions are these new divisions. And really the reason this is happening is because of the whole COVID situation, and Canadian teams really would not find it easy to travel across the border all the time to play and against other teams. So the Rangers division now, or let's focus on the East, because I think the East is brutal. I mean, this is easily the hardest division. You have the New York Rangers, the New York Islanders, the New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins, and the Buffalo Sabres. As a Ranger fan, the only team that I could say that the Rangers are definitively better than in that division is the Devils and maybe the Sabres. Other than that, between the Islanders, Flyers, Penguins, Capitals, and Bruins, this is a brutal division. Don, do you agree on that?
There's nothing else really to say on that. I'm afraid, to be honest. Like this would have been a great year to see the Rangers team, a young team, grow, and this really puts a damper on it. To be honest with you, when you're playing Boston, Pittsburgh, Philly, Washington. 8 times.
Eight times.
I mean, it's scary in the same time. I mean, I have confidence in the Rangers. I really do. I really think they have a good, solid young team. I think Shesterkin and Georgiev are going to do well in net. It's going to be a good tandem. I think their defense took a step forward. I don't like the Johnson move, but that's just personal. I think they're going to be fine. It's just a matter of, I mean, any team, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Tampa. If you're playing Pittsburgh, Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington 8 times each,
yes,
there's going to be a lot. Let's just say this: there's going to be a lot of parity. Meaning, I don't think there's going to be as much separation in points as people may think. I really think it's going to be. I mean, opposed to teams like Detroit and Ottawa and all that. I think in the East, maybe the Devils, I can say, may not have that great of a year. I don't know. But with all those teams in the division in the East, there's not – I say 1-2 points separate top to bottom with let's leave Jersey out of it, in my opinion. But that's how I look at it. I see – I mean, even Buffalo, I don't want to play Buffalo 8 times.
No, and they've got Taylor Hall as well. They still got Eichel, and they've got Taylor Hall now. So, I mean, they're not going to be an easy team. Let me, Jeff, let me go to you. So, I know you live down in Carolina, just to talk about some of the differences in division and how they're weighted. So, the Central Division is where the Carolina Hurricanes are. So, now keeping in mind what we talked about with how good the East is, this is the Central Division, and I mean this with no disrespect to teams that are in it, but this is just to give you the opposite feel. Carolina, who is obviously very good. I mean, we know what happened in the summer. But then you have Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa. Not that it's a walkover by any means, but it's not the East.
No. I was actually looking over this today, and I picked my top 3 teams out of that division, and I picked Tampa Bay, Canes, and Dallas. I mean, unless if Detroit did something that we don't know about other than bringing in Stahl, they aren't going to be much of a challenge this year. They did pick up a goalie from, wasn't it, what's his name, from New Jersey?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
It was either Islanders or New Jersey.
Which team?
They picked up, what's his face from the
Lerner.
Islanders? Yeah.
Lerner, right? Lerner.
Yes. Yep.
And so, I mean, the one thing that Carolina has going for them is they're a young team. They didn't do much moves, and the only biggest move that they really did this year was announcing that Chicago Wolves are going to be their new AHL affiliating, other than moving from Charlotte up to Chicago. I think that was one of their biggest moves. Other than that, TVR going to Washington, and they didn't really do anything. They picked up a couple good players in the draft, and they've been really quiet. So,
Yeah.
You are right, though. Go ahead.
Well, you're right. I mean, the divisions are different for sure, and but the league had to do this really on geography because of coronavirus, right? You don't want teams flying across the country here.
No.
You're trying to minimize the risk. And as of now, it sounds like the games will be played in home arenas without fans. Just so you guys know, I am a Ranger season ticket holder. What they have done is we've paid for the entire season already, or most of it, 9 of 11 payments, but we don't even know that we'll be allowed in. So in the East, out of these 8 teams, Boston, Buffalo, the Devils, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Penguins, and Washington, the way that it is structured is the playoffs will run where the top 4 of the 8 will make it. Mm-hmm. So if we use kind of some of the detective work in what we've said so far, we're going to say New Jersey's not going to be a top 4 team, right? Mm-hmm. We could assume probably that Buffalo's not going to be either, even though they did sign Taylor Hall, but he seems to be more of a problem wherever he's going lately. Mm-hmm. So that leaves 6 teams: the Bruins, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Flyers, Pittsburgh, and Washington. Which of those 2 teams, and let's try and pick here with our head, not our heart, because we are Ranger fans, which 2 teams, I'm going to start with you, Don, also do not make the playoffs in the East?
It's honestly tough, man. I think Pittsburgh has taken a step back. They showed it with their lackluster performance against Montreal in the playoffs. Again, it's hard to base anything off the playoffs that happened because it was such an odd situation and no one was really used to it. I mean, you look at Edmonton and Montreal that took, the biggest flops in my opinion. But me personally, in this, I do have the Rangers in 4th. I don't think they go any higher than that. Having that young of a team, I do think they make the playoffs. I have Philadelphia 3rd. I have Boston 2nd and Washington 1st. I don't have Pittsburgh making it. And I know everyone's going to hate on me and call me a homer. And yeah, you're born to hate the Islanders, but I don't think they're that good of a team. And if they don't, I know the theory and the rumor is Barzal on a bridge deal, 2-3-year deal. But if they don't get that done, and they lose Barzal, which let's face it, they're going to have to sign him. I don't know where else do you go. You're not depending on Anders Lee. You're not depending on anyone else on that team. But I just don't see them making it. So those are my top 4. Now, Do I see the Rangers not making it this year? I'm at 50-50, to be honest with you. And I'm a diehard. I was a season ticket holder from 1995 to like 2010 when I left New York. So
that's funny. I started in 2011. Maybe I took your seats. Wouldn't that be funny?
You might have. So I mean, I'm right there. Like, I was almost disappointed that they made the playoffs this past summer. To be honest with you, like I don't think they deserved it. They played great, but it showed exactly what they were lacking, and I don't think they addressed what they were lacking in the offseason. I mean.
We're going to go to Jeff because I want Jeff's opinion on that division in the East as well, what 4 teams are going to come out. But my thought on the Rangers is if they don't make it here, which is a realistic chance, right? I mean, the division is really good. If they end up playing a 6-game, 54-game regular season and don't make the playoffs, at least these young kids, because the Rangers are still young, are going to get a lot of experience and going to be playing some really good teams. And that's going to be helpful down the road and hopefully in October when things reset and we have a full season. So to you, Jeff, out of those 8 teams, we're going to go with Buffalo and the Devils not making it. So out of the remaining 6, Boston, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Penguins, and Washington, who are the other 2 teams that do not make the playoffs?
I don't think Pittsburgh or Washington do. I think Washington was putting too much money on having Lundqvist in net as a backup or even a starter for Samsonov. So with him gone, now they're going to have to rely solely on Samsonov in net. And I hope I'm saying his name right.
No, you are.
Correct.
You are.
And now they have to go and find a backup because Holtby's no longer with them as he flew the coop and went out to Vancouver. So I think their trump card on Lundqvist kind of like is a bust now. I mean, God forbid you don't want to see someone go out of the game as he did, but I think they were relying on him to be there a good percentage of the season. As far as Pittsburgh, their reign's over. Yeah, they still have the skill and they still have the talent, but they don't have the goaltending again. I know Donnie and I were talking about this earlier when the Penguins or when the playoffs first started. And I don't know if they made the right deal to keep Jari instead of Murray, but I mean, both of them are not that lackluster of goalies. So Malkin's going to have to step up. Crosby's going to have to forget that he's no longer a kid anymore, and he's actually one of the veterans on the team. And if they want to make it any further than what they are, they need to step up their game. As far as the Rangers making it, I'm going to have to agree. They're a young team. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. But you know what? It's a learning curve. So,
yeah, that's what I keep coming back to the last couple of days. Now, it had been rumored that this was going to be their division, so it's not like on Sunday when they officially put it out, it came as like a shock. Like we had a feeling this was going to happen. But I keep telling myself, look, if we can get 54 games or 56 games for these kids to learn in a great environment where they're playing top teams, when this thing resets and hopefully with vaccines and all that stuff, we go back to normal in the fall, that's a lot of experience for this young team to get. So that once things reset, I mean, the Rangers are so incredibly young, and they're not going to have Vitaly Kravtsov until the end of the season at the earliest because he signed at the KHL. So, they're not even going to have their full arsenal. If these kids, especially, everyone's going to talk about Alexis Lafreniere, obviously, to get some experience as well. Look, at worst, give me experience. Get Igor Shesterkin more experience because he needs it. He's only was a goalie, really. He picked up the starting reins, I think, in a game January 12th, if I remember this year, is when he made his debut somewhere, or January 10th, I think it was. So he really only played for 2 months. I mean, we forget about how inexperienced he is. For him to get, playing the David Pasternaks of the world 8 times, it's only going to help him in the long term, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right, who do you guys think, as we start to set the table for the return to hockey, who do you predict, and we'll start this time with Jeff, who's winning the Stanley Cup?
Oh, God. I did bring my Magic 8 Ball today, so I'm going to have to go based off what the Crystal Ball said this morning. I think it's going to be the Western Conference this year. I'd like to see Vegas do it.
And is that because you know the night out there, or that's because you actually think they'll do it?
I think they'll come close to. I mean, they've come close so many times, and then just haven't been able to finish. Now, out on a whim, and I don't know who's going to hate me, love me, want to kick me after this, but if Toronto can get everybody on the same page, I can see Toronto possibly doing it, or at least making it farther than any one of the Canadian teams.
Which would be for Toronto, if they could make it longer than anywhere else, make it beyond where any of the Canadian teams, that would be progress for them, for sure, with their track record. They are so, I don't understand the situation up there. They are so loaded. They've got Tavares, Matthews, Mitch Marner, all these guys that are so good, and it just can't. I mean, Freddie Anderson, I guess, is going to have a lot of pressure on him this year in the net. To you, Don, who's winning the Stanley Cup?
I'm going to go off what I said last year when the playoffs started, and I'm going to stick with them. I really love the makeup of their roster, the Dallas Stars. I don't care. People talk all the time. I said it at the beginning of the playoffs. That makeup with young and veterans, Tyler Seguin, Ben, that is a hell of a team, and it's not a team I would want to play in the playoffs. Now, looking at that Central, like you said, I mean, you have the 2 Stanley Cup finalists and the Stanley Cup winner in the same division that had to play each other 8 times.
Yeah, crazy.
insane, and that's never. I mean, that's obviously never happened. But I love the makeup of that team. I really do. I said it at the beginning of the playoffs last year, and I was almost right. But I like that team. I do. Now, in my heart of hearts, the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. But now we're talking hockey. We're talking hockey. Yeah, I really do like Dallas, and just to touch on what Jeff said about Toronto, they have no shot. That team has more problems than Congress. There's no way. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, man. They got all these young guys. Everybody wants to play their own way, and they fall apart when the pressure's on them. And yeah, part of it is because they play in Toronto, and that's like being a New York Yankee. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
when you're a Yankee and you're Stanton and you strike out 5 times, they're going to boo the shit out of you for every game that you don't do anything.
That is true. All right, last question before I let you guys go, and it's going to be a simple yes or no question. You ready? We're going to start. We're going to start with Don this time, and I think I know your answer, but I want to know your answer. Let's see. In the next 5 years, between now and 2025, do the New York Rangers win the Stanley Cup?
Yes.
Okay, Jeff.
I agree.
Okay, good. I'll take it. We'll throw it to you, Dougie Sticks. In the next 5 years,
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, they should. We're going to throw a wild party here, should it ever happen. Well, thank you guys both for coming on. Come on and join us anytime. And obviously, as the season goes on and we're a weekly show, you can come on anytime. We'll be talking plenty of hockey in the coming months. So thank you both for coming on. All right, guys?
Yeah, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome. You guys are welcome on our show anytime, too.
Awesome. We'll make that happen. Thanks, guys. Be well. Stay safe. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Have a good holiday.
So that is, and we'll put the Instagram, because I don't know if we did before, their show up there. The What the Puck podcast. You can check out their page on Instagram. It's a very good show. And you can tell by the questions that I asked them that they're knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Because we don't. Now, you know this. It's not like ahead of time we're exchanging, here's what the questions are going to be. They've got you don't know what I'm going to fire at you.
Exactly.
And they handled it well. They know their stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll see what. Don had a really good point with the Rangers being 4th and not higher in the division. If the Rangers are going to make the playoffs, realistically, they're not going to be above 4 like they would be in that seed. It's going to be very interesting, because the Rangers are now going to have to play the big bad Boston Bruins 8 freaking times, the Philadelphia Flyers 8 times, the Islanders 8 times. I mean, it's going to be, every game is going to be intense. It's going to be like playoffs every game, because you're playing teams
Maybe they
you
can
hate.
tank a little bit and then they get another pick.
Like the Jets.
But they shouldn't talk to the Jets about that.
No, do not go to the Jets for advice on how to do that.
Anything, winning or losing.
The Jets just mess it up. They don't care what they're supposed to do. They'll do the opposite.
Yep.
So should be interesting. We'll get into hockey a lot more. And one of the things that we talked about, I think we talked about it last week, was that we will probably do sometime in January a preview show for the New York Rangers. Like a season preview, aside from our regular show.
Get some Ranger guests too.
We'll try and get some Ranger guests in. Yeah. I've got a couple I can think that have been asking to come on. That would be good. We'll get your insight, of course.
Absolutely.
Nobody can talk to your Ranger hockey like you.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Have you ever been complimented so much in your life?
Never.
Right? Well, in that event, we wish you all a Merry Christmas coming up this Friday, and a different Christmas it will be with everything going on in the world. But we wish you all, wherever you celebrate, whatever country you're listening to us from, a very Merry Christmas. And we do hope that we have one more week of winning picks in us, because it's all we need is one more, Dougie.
Yeah.
One more.
Making you money.
And then, you know what we could do for the people that watch the show on camera, or that go back and watch the show, which apparently people do. I learned this weekend, which is interesting. Yeah. We can take champagne in the studio if we can get permission, if it's fine.
Of course.
And
just don't spray the electronics.
Well, I would, right. So we'll spray in this direction. So we'll move your mic.
This direction, there's all this stuff over here.
Well, that
spray in your direction.
Maybe for a week we'll move. Or the other thing I was thinking, which would be cool, would be if I took, like, when a football coach wins and they take like the massive thing of Gatorade and pour it over the person's head. If we just poured it over your head.
Well, you're the one making the picks. It's gonna pour on your head.
But I don't want to get wet. I don't want to get wet. I don't want to do that. I had enough trouble this past weekend going out dealing with the snow, playing with the snow.
We'll have to get a special guest to take the hit.
Right. Somebody that we could pour, and we'll make
A
it
couple
like
of people come to mind, and I know they're coming to your mind too.
that I would like to do it too. Yeah. We're probably thinking of the same people.
Yep. We just don't want to say it out loud.
We're not going to mention names. And one of them, by the way, emailed me during the show.
Oh, nice.
I just saw it come up. But so yeah, and then we'll do like a dramatic color, like red or pink, so that it just like stains their shirt.
everything. Yeah.
Like if they were wearing a
It's
white
so
Ranger
dangerous.
jersey,
Yeah.
just pour. We'll
Yeah.
advise them to come in here that day as a special guest and wear white, and then
white out
douse-
Ranger jersey. Yeah,
douse them with champagne and pink Gatorade.
I like it.
I like it too.
Got to
So-
win first.
What?
Got to win.
We got to win first. You know what? What's the saying? Like count the chickens before the eggs or whatever.
Something like that.
And it probably would
Makes
work. It
sense.
probably would work in fantasy football too, for obvious reasons. With me and you, the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Same thing with our picks. Do not count the chickens before the eggs. But if it happens, we will find somebody, and we know who. We're on the same page. We're not mentioning names because I know they listen. That we will pour some Gatorade over their head. So we will be back next week with, believe it or not, our last show of 2020. I know we're all happy to get 2020 out of the way.
Oh yeah.
We'll be back next week with our final episode of 2020, and we will look to 2021, which will include
Uno.
wow,
Uno.
well, I'd have to look that up on the Spanish dial. Thank you for our Spanish dial listeners. We'll be back in 2021 after next week with the NFL playoffs and the start of the NHL season. So if you had thought, and it was in my mind that, okay, maybe we have like a content
Break or a
gap
lull?
because we're
Nope.
going to end football with hockey starting, there's no rest here for the weary. We will just keep trudging along. We will have football playoffs and the NHL season starting, and it will be a wild couple months here on the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast. And get your questions in early because we're going to start taking hockey questions. And again, that email one last time is mypbshow@gmail.com. Anything else from you, Dougie Sticks, before we call it adieu for Santa Claus?
Have a great holiday, and any update? Any like quick little updates on what's going on at home with any like? Is your son going to download an app and have 100 cookies show up to the house? Any interesting?
No.
Any interesting
My
holiday stories?
My son, though, we talked about on the show a while ago with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I don't know where he even heard of the place. He wants to try an Arby's, and the nearest Arby's, in the Northeast, I know where some people listen from. There's Arby's everywhere. We don't have them. The nearest Arby's is like 45 minutes away. So I promised him that he would go because they have a drive-through, so you don't have to go in.
Mhm.
Next week, it is on the agenda on winter break.
That's the field trip. 45-minute drive
to get
Arby's.
to get a really overrated roast beef sandwich. But we do these things to make our kids happy. But yes, there'll be a lot of iPad time on winter break, I'm sure, with my children. So there'll be a lot of apps coming.
Nice.
Matter of fact, they've been asking me for a new app the last couple of days, and I'm trying to save it to keep them busy next week.
Yeah.
But they don't understand why they can't have it right away. But
Do you know what the app's called?
so I think it I don't know if it's pronounced this Among Us, but it's spelled Among Us. So
Okay.
AMONGUS. That's what they're asking for. It's a free.
Sounds
app.
like a zombie game.
Yeah, I should
They're
probably
Among Us.
I should probably check into these things
Yeah,
as a parent
probably.
before we download it. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a really good Christmas. I hope if you're a younger listener, Santa Claus brings you everything you want this year because you've deserved it because you lived through 2020. Everybody deserves it.
True.
Be safe, be well, have a great week, and we will talk to you next week.